with you guys now. So, all right. So, Peter, you want to go first with Slack or
Yeah,
take
that's
over Trello?
fine. Sure. I'm just getting launched the streaming of this. Oh, this is probably not the most important thing to be streaming as the other things though. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to share screen and we'll bring this up. All right. So when we look at the different channels, this is our YouTube channel, by the way. That was not meant to be the one that's up there at the moment, but it's simple. It's the basic presentations up there. But I'm going to scroll over and show you our Slack page. I'm going to show you some other ones as well. Now, when I want to invite somebody to use the Slack page, I'll also show you that function and how you can have multiple Slacks that you're part of at the same time. And annoyingly, my internet is going a little bit slow right now. All right. So this is another hackathon that I was part of a few weeks ago. This is the VIRS virus hack or hackathon. On their Slack channel, you'll see they have 38,000 members of their Slack channel. There's 38,000 people that had some role in that hackathon. So to give the idea of the kind of scale that can be accommodated in the types of conversations. However, we didn't want to try piloting the idea of organizing something like this with such a big group. And we also didn't want the goal of having such a big group, because although that hackathon had so many good ideas that came out of it with 38,000 people, they had the budget of a large German government agency behind it. And it just became so confusing, even with Slack, to keep track of who was doing what. But what's useful is that with Slack, you can start following specific channels. And so I'm going to start at this big level, and then I'm going to go down to how we do it and what we do within our own system. So we see here on the side, there's these buttons that say channels. And here I can pick particular topics. This page, of course, is in German because it's, well, the German government paid for it, so fair enough. But here, like this one is open questions, resources, what kind of support is offered. You'll see that in some cases, people have attached documents to some of these things as well. One can put polls into here. You can follow a particular conversation thread. You can put emoticons of what your response is to a comment. What's interesting, though, is rather than if you just had an email and it's only being shared with the people directly that you're working with, you can say, hey, there's a topic that we're always working on, or maybe a specific project, like a channel for one of your groups, or it could be, or the topic could be something like artificial intelligence, blockchain. It could be something very broad. And every time you have something within one of those topics, you can be posting in here, and you as members can choose which of these channels you're going to be following. And so you follow the channels that are within your area of interest. Again, with this site, with it 38,000 channels, or 38,000 members, I believe they have something like 280 different channels that they're offering. As well, you can be part of more than one Slack channel. So you see here's all the different Slacks that I'm part of. This is one from YPO, one from Matri, which is something from the BMW Foundation, a couple different Ayadee ones, one from Tunisia about fighting COVID-19, another one about a startup community. This is Global Hack, is another hackathon. And these different channels, you can have them all attached to your same email address and password. So if you're working with Slack with multiple spaces, you can have that attached to that same password. Now, if you go to use Slack and you haven't used it in a long time and you forget what your password was you used with Slack last time, it'll still expect the same password you did the first time. So if you don't remember, again, simple, just reset it. Now this is the Global Hack, another one of these larger ones. See, they do have less categories, even though they still had about 8,000 members participating in it. And I'm going to slide over to ours. Oops, I just closed everything. All right. So within our own app, no, that's not ours still, it's the Global Hack. All right, so I need to go back to my list of workspaces, good demo here, and find the Ayadee Foundation. I click launch. And you see we made different links introduce yourself, artificial intelligence, blockchain, like I was talking about, different categories. If you want to create a new channel, you can either browse channels and see if it's already there. And you'll see the list of what we've got at this point, 28, 29 channels. Or you can hit the plus button to create a channel. In this case, if there's some topic you feel is not being met yet, you can add something to there. Within these topics as well, you can, let's say we go to blockchain, and we can say, I like this comment that Dr. Adel made. Hi, everyone. Obviously, there's many more insightful things he says too, but if we wanted to save that, we could follow that. If we wanted to share a message, we could click on this share message, forward it to somebody else. If we want to make a thread and we want to make it, maybe there's a specific topic that he was commenting on, we can make different threads that'll be in response directly to this comment. So that way, we're both within a channel that as one division, and then we divide that into threads so we can follow specific conversation threads and get alerts or get reminders if somebody responded to that thread. So in this way, this can be a way that if you want to engage with, say, tens of people or even hundreds of people, and you don't want it to be public like your LinkedIn or your Facebook post, but at the same time, you want to reach more people than you would with your email, this is kind of a middle ground. So that's why those other hackathons I showed you that had 38,000, 7,800 members each, why they're using a tool like this. At our level, it's still enough though that it can be useful that, hey, I want to see if anybody's commented about the dairy sector. Has anybody written something about it? Oh, hey, look, here's some articles about what's going on with the dairy sector and problems it's having due to COVID. Food in schools. Okay, nothing's here, but we should post something. Oh, actually, I did put something there. I forgot. This is about an Alice Waters project. One of the speakers, David, at the introduction, the kickoff event, he actually works with that project with Alice Waters. So with this, we can be tracking. We can add channels. You can get alerts. If I wanted to make sure that Roman saw the response, I could write that and I can tag him in whatever comments I'm making. So he'll get, even if he isn't following my thread, he'll get a reminder of what it is that I typed in that box. And when you're first joining, and if this was, to take a step back, this was a challenge in some cases. We want to go back. Let's see, this is mentions it myself. Let's see, we gotta scroll up the page. Settings, administration, add workspaces. Somehow I am missing people. You can either invite people by just adding them here, typing in their address, or you could share this invite link. And I think some of you received this from me as well, where I've just copied and pasted this link. And in theory, if it works correctly, clicking on this link should just take you to this page. And if you don't have a Slack account yet or aren't signed in, it should ask you to create an account, just asking you to pick give them an email address and a password to validate that they've received an email verifying that. So that was probably a very, very fast overview, but what are some questions you guys have? Who's been using Slack? I mean, I've seen some of you logged in already. I see Blake currently is logged in even, and Matches is logged in. Who's been using this, and what are some questions people have about this?
So I have been using it for a whole while, and I have like a dozen different companies kind of like using Slack at the same time. So beside just the level within one Slack's workspace, you can have multiple workspaces there that are separate. And then there are very useful tools regarding the mention when you mention somebody, because then they would get more like notifications, and you can also notify the whole channel, notify anybody that is logged in right now. So it helps bring attention to kind of like what you are trying to work on.
Question now, what's your strategy for keeping track when you have 12 or 13 different Slack channels to keep track of?
I look more on the channels that I am involved in and that I've been mentioned in. So then that helps me kind of like, focus on those.
That makes sense. That makes sense. A comment back as well to what Michael pointed out here about Teams. Microsoft Teams does do a lot of the same things this does, and in some cases has more integrations. Both you can do integration with Slack or with Teams with, for example, Skype and other calling tools. However, one of the main reasons people start out using Slack instead of Teams is simply Teams cost money. So if you're doing an event that you're not charging people for and you want to not have to pay per person that's taking part in it, that's where Slack's one of the advantages Slack has is. But Teams, I do like that a lot as well. Similar purposes, same idea of tracking different channels. And of course, then it's interoperable with whatever you've got in the cloud with Microsoft 365.
By the way, Michael has a good question. He's asking about the security of these applications.
Right, yes.
So,
There, it's, beyond, I guess the two things I think of is one, that if somebody's going to get into it, they have to either guess your password. So like everything, pick a secure password. And secondly, the aspect of people would have to hack Slack's account and get into a very secure system. Now, of course, this is where I can make the advocacy for like, well, let's put blockchain in everything, which maybe goes overboard to put in everything in some cases. But you could, if there's two-factor identification, there's other tools you could use as well to make your login more secure, more verified. But definitely that whether it's Teams or Slack, I could see why it's not on classified networks at state yet, because there is, I mean, yeah, there is of course a risk that somebody gets your password, but there's a risk that somebody gets your Gmail password too. So
Yeah,
there's
that was
two-factor
just
authentication.
a little inside humor.
Okay.
Poorly done.
All right.
So I'm going to address this security issue when I'm showing you the Trello. There's one simple thing that everybody can do to secure the applications, the information online.
Any other questions about Slack though before we switch over? Because if not, we don't need to dwell on this and go long, but if anybody's having trouble with this or wants to go deeper into a case, we can do that, or we could set that up in a separate call as well if somebody's got something specific they want to go into.
I wanted to also add one quick thing if I can.
Please.
So one of the great advantages in Slack that it's a same approach for like open source communities and so forth. So there is a ton of tools and apps that you can install in it. So if for those that are more techy here on the call, if you have continuous integration, for example, done with a tool out there like on Bitbucket or Pipes or something like that, you could actually integrate that so that you would know when it is deployed. If you are using Trello and Jira and other tools like those, you could also add those hooks there, which allows you to get updates in a special Slack channel. So you could basically see everything that you need to see there, as well as even Google Calendar. So you can grab it into this piece.
Yeah, that's great. And with all these things, the integration of the more we can make it that you're only having to access one point and use one password and not have different passwords and different logins and everything can update together is great. And that's one of the things I like about Slack, that if you do have several different Slack accounts you're having to work with, you can have them all linked to that one email address and one password, that we don't have to be remembering different passwords for different units or different projects that we're working on. Any other questions on Slack? How many of you have logged into it? Or who maybe just give in the chat box yes or no if you've logged into Slack yet or not, please. If not, try it out today. All right, I see a yup, I see no, we'll try. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys the link again. I'm gonna paste that into the chat here just so we've got it easily available, because I know having to go look for something is one of the biggest annoying, maybe easy things, but barriers that might stop people from doing it. So I will just paste this back in again, the invite link. All right, so for those who haven't tried it yet, try clicking on that. And Mike, no, you're not at day-to-day national holiday, so you can try it when you're home at least. All right. Excellent, excellent. All right, so I think that's all we have for now on Slack, but the main thing I want to say is that Slack is something we're going to keep this account open after the event. And this can be continue to be a venue in which to share resources, to share ideas. Just you read an interesting article, you see something useful, put it into the channel that fits. Yeah, invite more people to join the Slack channel. Even after this event, if you see people who are interested in this topic, who are interested in looking at projects in this space, it's not locked where you can't invite people. You can share the invite link, and other people can join that. That can be restricted. People could choose to close that. But since we're all about building a bigger community and in the sense of, hey, let's find people who are interested in solving this problem, people who are interested in making the food system work better, whether it's a mix of tech or policy, create channels that fit specific ideas you want, follow the conversations that fit with it you want to follow, or the threads rather, invite people who are interested in these topics, and we'll keep this open. Again, even though there will be judges at the end of the week picking and ranking the projects, but you can still consider this as a space to share your ideas, to get feedback from other people. We're in all different time zones all over the world at the moment, so this can be a spot where Joan in Beijing, you could paste an idea and ask questions, and then somebody in California in the morning could answer it, and then and so forth. Keeps depending what time of day where somebody is. So I'm going to stop sharing I have stopped sharing already. I'm going to turn over to Mehmet though.
All right, and so hi guys again. So I'm going to share my screen now. So I'm sure most of you found Slack a little bit more confusing than what you're going to see now. Trello is a pretty straightforward application, web-based system that you can use to work together as a team. So first you just enter Trello.com, and then you can easily and quickly sign up for a new account. I'm just gonna want to show you simply what you can achieve here. So sorry for this. So now it's logging me in, and what you have to keep in mind is on Trello you have boards, and these boards are used to organize your workflow with your team. And all right, look, I'm gonna just head back to my current board, so it's gonna be faster if you don't have to waste time. So after you're logged in and everything is set up, you have this blank screen. What you should do is you have to create a new team with your team members, and let's call this hackathon at Ayadee. And then team type, you can just write your description, and then you can just add members of your team. Like I'm gonna add Peter now. And so you're automatically in the team. So just like demo board. And I'm creating a demo board, and so that's it. Now, what is a board? Here you can see that there is a column here, and it says add a list. So the first one, I say, okay, this is the to do, and this is the doing, and then this is the done list. So this is pretty straightforward. If, for example, as a team, I need something to be done, and I need Peter to do this, please do that. I write here, and then I just add Peter. Why didn't I see Peter here? For example, I just added this one, and then when you click on that item, you can see here, you can add a description here for anything, and then you can give all the details. You can assign labels with different colors. You can also assign names to these labels. You can set up a checklist, and you can have like item 1, item 2. And when you finish those, you will see that the progress you're making with the checklist. And then you can assign members to those items. For example, here, I say that this is going to be done by Peter because that's his specialty. So when I assign it to Peter, then he's going to receive a notification here that, look, you're assigned an item here. And then when Peter is doing it, he can just drag and drop it on this doing list. As you can see, it's very simple like that. When you just drag and drop it somewhere else, you cannot believe how quickly it is updated all on the other team members' pages. So it's like almost immediately. So when Peter just drags it here, he can just write some comments. Okay, I did this and this, and then maybe he needs to upload an attachment, and he wants to add some picture or something, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. And then it's so to each item that you are working on the project, you can add attachments, due dates, checklists, labels, different members. And when a member works on something, they can just write something up, and then they can tag the other person if they need some answer for them. And very quickly like this, also you have an overview here that there's 2 comments, a checklist, half of which is already finished. And then when Peter has finished this, he's just dragging it to the done section. And as you can see now, we are finished. Or if there's any other thing that we have to do, you can just add another item here, another one here, another one here. You can assign this one to someone else and the other one to another one. It's very quickly and very easy to use. And one thing that you can do also is you can add your Slack account to your Trello. Here on your Slack, when you come here to the apps and click the plus sign, it asks you, okay, look, these are the integrations we can make happen for you. And when you click add, it just opens it gives you some brief information here. And why integrate those two? If you can integrate those two and you work on these 2 systems, it's going to be very easy for you to add an item to a list on Trello without leaving your Slack account. And it's pretty quick to work on Trello and Slack together. So the integration will be really speeding up your processes. So you don't have to go back and forth in Trello through Slack like this. So, but in order to integrate your Trello to the Slack, you need to have a team already created on Trello. So it's asking you which team. So I'm choosing this hackathon at Ayadee, and then I just have to give my consent. Okay, I'm allowing it. And then I just link those 2. So I think this is pretty easy to see and understand. And it's going to really be helpful in working as a team, because you can easily add lists, add items to lists. You can increase, you could add any amount of lists here, and you can easily just drag and drop items back and forth. You can make comments, you can assign to members. It's a pretty straightforward thing. And one thing about the security concerns from Michael, what everyone should do is here, I'm gonna 2-factor authentication. So here it's disabled. And when you click configure 2-factor authentication, it's going to give you some options how to do it. And so some websites, some apps use an application for authentication, some use SMS messages, but you should activate this on all the online systems, either websites or applications. You should enable these. Also on your Gmail accounts, I'm sure there's also on Slack. So that's for the security concern from Michael. And so I think that's it about the Trello. I don't know. Does anyone have a question regarding this?
I just wanted to add, while you guys are thinking of potential questions, that any of you who are on Seth's call on Saturday about working in teams, one of the big points he was talking about with new teams and people you don't know yet is accountability and having a clear agreement and clear understanding of who's doing what. And obviously this just makes it super clear. If you look at the to-do list and let's say like, I don't agree with what Mehmet said was the thing he's asking me for, or I don't know the answer, I can just write a comment. I could reassign it to somebody else. It's very easy to always have it clear to everybody who's doing what, who's working on what the expectations are from the other team members. So that way, even if you're not in the same physical location or even having a phone call with each other, you can make it transparent what the expectations are, at least, of what each person thinks the other one's doing.
Yeah, that's a really good point here, Peter. And Trello is an open canvas. You can do it whatever way you like to do it. So this view here is really good. An alternative view to here, where much more granularity, depending on how you want to do that, is to have a to-do list, one list, but then the doing becomes a split between all different people. So you'd have a lane here for Adele, a lane for Peter, and so forth. And then kind of like you grab and say like, hey, I'm doing this. So now I know what Peter is working on, and you know what I'm working on. And when I'm done, I'm going to push it to the next one where it is kind of like done.
And by the way, so this one is the demo board for the hackathon and Ayadee team. But you can create more boards. For example, if you are working on 2 different projects at the same time, which you have to keep on track with a different workflow or on a different board, then you can just have another board. And you can differentiate by color and then have a different list, totally different than the other one. And you can work very quickly on either and just switch from one to the other.
So yeah, again, if some of you are already, some of you are working in like a big organization, as Michael pointed out, like about Microsoft Teams, like a lot of big organizations do use Teams because they're already paying for Microsoft 365 subscription. So if they're paying for Microsoft anyway, then then Teams is often part of what they're paying for anyhow. With yeah, in addition to just using obviously the Word and Excel and basic things. But if you're not already subscribing and paying for Microsoft Teams anyhow, then these are easy and fast tools that you can make scalable and shareable across groups of people.
Also, the free tier of this Trello is also pretty useful. So most probably you will not need to get a paid subscription from Trello. And only for some advanced settings, they require you to upgrade. But other than that, you don't have to pay anything for the basic functionality that I've just shown you.
We have a question from Matthias. Is it possible to make Gantt with Trello?
Well, again, so you cannot have something in between those 2 lists, but use your imagination. So maybe not perfect, but something similar you can do.
Yeah,
so maybe having many boxes.
Trello, there are some tools for doing that, but like or kind of like plugins that you can put there. The best one known is Timeline, but you can simulate it, but not really enforce it on the UI.
So one thing I want to show is when you, for example, open a card, here you see power-ups. So what's a power-up is, so it's like the integrations you can add to your Trello account. You can add your Dropbox, you can add Jira, and I'm pretty sure that there are some useful power-ups that will gonna give you the ability to maybe turn this into a Gantt chart.
So what are these then? The like 1,000 plus, 10,000 plus. What does that refer to in the power-ups? Can you explain that?
Which one?
So underneath, for example, connected to GitHub Trello with Unito, you see add, then you see the description, and then 1,000 plus.
Yes, here you see when I hover it, enable on more than 10,000 boards. So just like marketing stuff. So more than 10,000 boards are using this. So you can see
how that Trello has their own token. Okay.
No, it's just like that. for example, on this checklist item, you can add as many items you need to. But if you, for example, want to assign a member of the team to the checklist item, then you need to upgrade. But if you don't need this functionality, then you don't. You can just write the name of the person here, and then you can be done with it without paying it. Of course, it has some positive things when you upgrade, but even this one is enough. Or if you want to add a due date, you need to upgrade. Okay, anyone has a question about Trello, which is not clear? I guess not. So Peter. Hello.
I just realized I was muted. Sorry.
Oh.
I was saying the first time I had seen this was when the boxes were already created on there. But that's really great to know. There's that flexibility that if you have maybe a multi-step process, or you have, for whatever reason, maybe there's 10 different boxes you need, or a different list, that you can create more of them or less of them, and
Actually,
choose who you're sharing with too. Because right, you could have the boards if you're working in a bigger organization, or let's say you're working with different clients. If you could you have a board for each one of the clients that Focal Haus is working with?
Yeah, definitely. For example, also when you click create a new board, then you have this option here, start with a template. And there are lots of ready-made templates that you can directly, for example, I don't know, like inbound marketing campaign. And someone has created this board and uploaded here. So if you like it, you can just import it and change it to your liking. You know, it gives you all the simple information here, and then use it as a template. And just create and
I could see this as a tool, using this with clients as well, not just with team members within a company, but maybe instead of emailing back and forth with clients, that to-do list could be there of what you're working on. So they can, if they can only see that board that's related to their projects with you, they could see clearly, oh, okay, there's been, Focal Haus has made this much progress in this part of my website. Here's the work, and here's what they're currently doing. Here's what they've completed already. So instead of like writing and emailing and asking questions and get step by step about what's happening, like somebody who has maybe his company Focal Haus doing a website, they could just log into the Trello page and just see all the steps of what's going on and what's been finished, what's in progress, etc.
So you can see here, for example, the template I imported does have lots of lists and some sample content on it. So you can just have many ideas how people are creating their own boards and how they make use of this functionality.
Great. So do we have any other questions? If not, one can take a break between now and when we start the next call. Presuming you'll be on the next one too.
All right. Yes.
So you guys know the call that's going to start in about 20 minutes. It's the owner the co-owner of one of the large of a restaurant conglomerate in Southern California. They have 9 different restaurants in all different sectors. So that'll be talking really about the end use, the impact of how restaurants normally work with their food supply chain. Some of you heard Melissa on Saturday talking about how the fresh produce is coming down to the restaurant level. So he'll be talking from the restaurant perspective. You may have also heard on Saturday when Dan gave the presentation of how the meat is being processed, what happens to the meat when it's being brought down to the restaurants and to the retailers. So again, this will be the restaurant side. They have 9 different places ranging from like bars to coffee shops to ice cream parlors to different types of sit-down restaurants. And so with 9 different restaurants, Josh Loeb will be speaking. He'll have a broad perspective and how his different types of restaurants have been impacted, which types lost more, lost less, and how they're responding to the crisis, what they're doing now, and what they see as paths going forward. Coming right shortly after that, today we're going to have a talk by Kim Gorton of Gorton and Slade, one of the biggest and oldest seafood companies in the U.S. They buy fish from over 200 different countries, and so she'll be talking about their supply chain and how they're managing. Because of course, fish has to be kept cold; it can spoil and go bad very quickly. So when there's not a market to distribute it, what do they do, and how COVID's impacting them? We'll have Melissa again tomorrow because there's a lot of questions about the fresh fruit and vegetable produce chains, and given that she knows a lot about the restaurant side too, she'll speak a bit more on that. But that could today's presentations could lend some new questions for that follow up with her, and then after her, there's going to be a talk about frozen fruits and vegetables by the owner of a company that operates in 6 U.S. states that does basically freezes fruits and vegetables and exports them to various locations. So we'll have the next 2 days will give you a lot of aspects of how the value chain for different food products works, so you can figure out where the holes are and what new addresses, what areas you might address with the projects you have, or if there's any adjustments or customizations you want to make as you refine your projects based on this new information you'll get.
So it's going to start in 15 minutes.
Yes, so if there's no other questions, I'm going to close this call, and you guys all should have the calendar link, or email me if you don't. And those will be starting very shortly.
All right then.
Thank you, Mehmet.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.